On a humid March night in 2024, the tranquil stillness of Palawan was suddenly shattered. The air, thick with anticipation and the scent of the sea, vibrated with the blaring of alarms at the naval station. What began as an ordinary night quickly transformed into a moment that would be etched into the nation's memory. Red emergency lights pulsed through the corridors as sailors and Marines sprang into action, their training kicking in with practiced precision. In the command center, a live drone feed flickered onto screens, revealing a flotilla of unauthorized foreign vessels advancing steadily toward a Philippine-held reef, an unmistakable sign of imminent confrontation. This was no ordinary drill. The years of preparation, the countless hours of training, and the nation's resolve were about to be put to the ultimate test. Every face in the room reflected a mix of anxiety and determination, knowing that history was unfolding before their eyes. In the Situation Room, officers worked in unison, coordinating a rapid, multi-layered response. Digital maps glowed under their fingertips as they tracked the approaching threat, relaying orders and updates with calm urgency. Every decision carried weight, every second counted. At Antonio Bautista Air Base, fighter jets roared to life, slicing through the night sky as they launched into action. Simultaneously, the BRP Andres Bonifacio, a modern missile frigate, cut through the waves at full speed, leading a fleet of Navy ships toward the brewing standoff. The Philippine Navy, once underestimated, now moved with confidence and purpose. Across the archipelago, tension mounted. News anchors interrupted regular programming to report the breaking maritime crisis. In homes, cafes, and public squares, Filipinos gathered around glowing screens, their faces tense with worry and hope as live updates streamed in from the front lines. For years, stories of harassment and intimidation at sea had circulated, tales of fishermen chased from their own waters, of Coast Guard vessels outnumbered and outgunned. But tonight, the response was different. Immediate, robust, and unmistakably resolute. The nation was no longer content to watch from the sidelines. New radar systems swept the ocean, their beams piercing the darkness. Military drones soared overhead, relaying real-time intelligence to command. Modern Navy ships, the result of years of investment and planning, converged on the contested waters, each one a testament to a deliberate long-term strategy to defend the nation's sovereignty. The world watched with bated breath as the Philippines drew a clear line on the open sea. International news outlets broadcast the unfolding standoff, analysts debated the stakes, and allies quietly signaled their support. The eyes of the world were fixed on these waters, where history was being written in real time. The radar's flashing lights were more than just signals of approaching ships. They were symbols of a nation's resolve, of a people determined to defend what was theirs. In the darkened command room, officers watched the screens with unwavering focus, knowing that every blip represented both danger and duty. The Philippines was no longer a passive observer, but a vigilant guardian of its own destiny. On the decks of patrol boats and warships, sentries stood watch through the night, eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of escalation. As dawn approached, the resolve of the nation only grew stronger. The midnight alarm was more than a warning. It was a call to action, a signal that a new era had begun. The defense of maritime territory was now paramount, and the nation stood united, ready to face whatever challenges the roaring seas might bring. For decades, the Philippine military's attention was fixed inward, locked in a relentless struggle against insurgencies that hid deep within the country's jungles and rugged mountains. Generations of soldiers learned to fight in the thick undergrowth, their boots muddy from years of internal conflict. The Army, with its sheer numbers and experience, dominated the defense landscape. The Navy and Air Force, meanwhile, were relegated to supporting roles, often operating with equipment that was decades old. Rusting trucks, aging ships, and aircraft that struggled to keep up with modern demands. Despite the Philippines being an archipelago with over 7,000 islands, its vast and vulnerable coastline was largely overlooked. The sea, which shaped the nation's identity and sustained its economy through fishing and trade, was left exposed and underprotected. Year after year, the defense budget prioritized land forces, funneling resources into the Army while maritime security was left to languish. Naval bases sat quiet, and ships remained docked, unable to patrol the nation's waters effectively. This neglect created a silent but growing vulnerability, a ticking time bomb that threatened the nation's future. By 2016, as internal threats began to fade, a new and more complex challenge emerged from the sea. Tensions in the South China Sea brought maritime security to the forefront of national concern. Military leaders and policymakers came to a sobering realization: the greatest threat to the country's sovereignty and survival would no longer come from the land, but from the vast waters that surrounded it. It was clear that a fundamental shift in strategy was needed, a pivot from the familiar terrain of the mountains to the uncharted challenges of the sea. The nation's gaze, once fixed on the green of its mountains, now turned resolutely toward the deep blue of its maritime domain, ready to defend its waters and embrace a new era of security. The shift to maritime defense sparked a massive modernization drive. New and upgraded bases rose along the western coastline, especially on Palawan, the front line to the West Philippine Sea. Remote outposts in the Calayan Island group were fortified, airstrips paved, barracks rebuilt, surveillance towers erected. The message: the Philippines was not just claiming these islands but actively defending them. Bases in Batanes and the south were also enhanced, creating a layered defense network. This allowed rapid response and persistent presence across the archipelago. For troops, modern facilities boosted morale. For citizens, new bases were a visible sign of commitment. Sovereignty was no longer abstract, it was concrete and real. The military transformation was a direct response to escalating incidents in the West Philippine Sea. As tensions rose and incidents became more frequent, the Philippine government realized that the status quo was no longer sustainable. The need for a stronger, more agile defense force became undeniable, especially as the region's security environment grew increasingly complex. Filipino fishermen faced harassment and intimidation on a daily basis, their livelihoods threatened by foreign vessels that loomed over their small boats. Many fishermen recounted stories of being chased away from traditional fishing grounds, their catch dwindling as access to the sea became more dangerous and uncertain. Swarms of maritime militia blockaded vital resources, using gray zone tactics to assert control without open conflict. These tactics blurred the line between peace and war, creating a constant atmosphere of tension and uncertainty for those who depended on the sea for survival. Navy and Coast Guard patrols faced direct confrontations, sparking national outrage as videos spread online. The public watched in real time as their defenders stood firm against overwhelming odds, fueling a sense of unity and urgency across the nation. The 2016 arbitral victory felt hollow as the sea itself was slipping away. Legal triumphs offered hope, but without enforcement, the reality on the water remained unchanged, leaving many Filipinos feeling powerless and frustrated. Public outcry demanded action, not words. Rallies and protests grew larger, with citizens from all walks of life calling for stronger measures to defend the nation's sovereignty and protect those who risked their lives at sea. Diplomatic protests were no longer enough. The people wanted tangible results, not just statements and paperwork. The government faced mounting pressure to move beyond diplomatic channels and take decisive steps. The government recognized that only a credible, visible presence could protect its people and territory. Investments in new ships, bases, and training signaled a new era of readiness and resolve, showing both allies and adversaries that the Philippines would not back down. The cries of the fishermen became a national call to action. Their stories resonated far beyond coastal communities, inspiring solidarity and a renewed sense of purpose among Filipinos everywhere. The nation resolved to defend its waters with more than just legal claims. Strategic planning, increased patrols, and a commitment to unity became the new foundation for national defense. The era of passive protest was over. A new chapter had begun, one defined by courage, vigilance, and the unwavering determination to protect the nation's future. Modernization meant more than new ships. It required new leadership and thinking. A new generation of officers trained abroad brought fresh perspectives on geopolitics and joint operations. They championed a shift from army-centric doctrine to integrated joint force strategy. The focus moved to connecting sensors, ships, and aircraft into a cohesive defense network. The AFP Horizon program was re-energized, acquiring systems that fit a larger strategic puzzle. Training standards rose. Sailors, pilots, and special forces adapted to new technologies and missions. The most advanced hardware was matched by highly trained personnel. A new kind of Filipino warrior emerged, equally skilled at sea and on land. The results of transformation were clear. Forward bases enabled rapid deployment. Crises that once took days to address could now be met in hours. Modern ships patrolled regularly, asserting sovereignty and deterring intruders. The Philippine flag became a common sight in contested waters. Defense assets doubled as tools for law enforcement and disaster response, saving lives and protecting resources. The investment paid off. The archipelago was no longer a soft target. The strategy was clear: raise the cost of aggression, making any hostile action too costly to attempt. The Philippines had grown defensive spikes, a credible deterrent. The Philippines is a nation of coastlines, over 7,600 islands, more water than land. The sea is its lifeblood, connecting people and powering the economy. Its location at the crossroads of global trade makes maritime security vital, not just for itself but for the region. The EEZ is rich in marine life and energy resources, essential for prosperity and survival. Without control of its waters, the nation's future is at risk. The shift to maritime defense was a rediscovery of the country's true nature. The sea has always shaped Filipino identity and history. Geography is destiny, and the Philippines embraced it. The Philippines learned from neighbors like Vietnam and Indonesia, who built strong, asymmetric maritime defenses. Vietnam's focus on submarines and coastal missiles, and Indonesia's integrated maritime security, offered practical models. Inspired, the Philippines strengthened interagency cooperation and its national Coast Watch system. The U.S. alliance, anchored by the Mutual Defense Treaty, provided critical hardware, training, and joint exercises. Programs like Balikatan improved interoperability and raised AFP professionalism. These partnerships stretched limited resources and accelerated modernization. The Philippines stood stronger, backed by allies, but determined to defend itself. Technology powered the defense transformation. Coastal radar networks and real-time command systems gave unprecedented maritime awareness. Long-range patrol aircraft and drones provided persistent surveillance and targeting. The Navy acquired modern warships with advanced missiles. The Marines gained new amphibious capabilities. Land-based BrahMos missiles created no-go zones for hostile ships. These layers of sensors, drones, ships, and missiles formed an integrated defense system. The archipelago became a much harder target to penetrate. The tech revolution made the Philippines a true maritime power. By 2026, the Philippines faced the sea with new confidence. A decade of transformation forged a credible shield for the archipelago. Fishermen felt safer, sea lanes were more secure, and resources better protected. The military became a proud guardian of external frontiers. Strength brought quiet confidence, not aggression, enabling stronger diplomacy and regional leadership. The nation proved that smart investment and resolve could defend its rights. The Philippines was no longer a passive victim of geography, but a genuine maritime powerhouse. As the new era began, the country was ready to shape its own destiny on the seas.